I'm not a huge fan of just kind of giving lectures, but I can tend to ramble on for a while. So I'll try and limit myself there. I know people are probably getting a little bit hungry here. If you want to stop me at any point and ask questions about lectures, feel free to interrupt and ask whatever it is. I'll try and keep stuff pretty relevant to what I think your guys' interests are. I had to browse through the website yesterday and kind of tried to read up on what everybody does, so I could kind of tailor this towards the stuff you guys do. My name is Evan Raskob, first off. I'm from the United States, so I'm very happy about the election last night. Stayed up a bit late last night. Yeah. Cheer. Yeah. It's so nice. I can't even tell you the feeling. I've done a lot of different projects over the years. I thought what I'd do here is just kind of go through a sampling of them over the past kind of 8 years since I've really been doing stuff. And again, I've sort of done interactive works. I kind of tend to think of myself mostly as an interactive artist, which kind of encompasses everything, let's say. Which means I probably, I'm good at answering, general questions. I'm good at some specifics, but I've kind of chosen to be more of a generalist, I think, and kind of do the broad spectrum of interactive things rather than specialize. And by that I mean you have guys who are excellent programmers and excellent video game artists and excellent sound artists and guys who just do video editing, and I kind of dabble in all of these things. So if you see some of my coding and it's a bit sloppy in any one of them, then that's my excuse. So here we go. I went to graduate school back in 2002 in New York. It's called the Interactive Telecommunications Program, and it's a really nice program, and a lot of the Illuminati of, I think, the new media world kind of came from there or went through there at some point. They're really good at attracting people, namely because they let you own your own stuff. So you pay a ridiculous amount of tuition, but at least whatever you do, you own. And that's very different to some other institutions like the Media Lab at MIT and, and across the world. Usually you go there at the pleasure of the school, and the school owns whatever you do, and you work on school projects. So I really appreciated the chance they gave me there to do stuff. Of course, I really had to pay for it, and will be paying for it for the next 10 years. But if you're in New York, I recommend going by and checking it out. While I was there, I did this documentary. I got very much into building instruments. And by building instruments, I mean, electronic instruments, not analog instruments. Although I do love analog instruments, I really like the possibilities of microcontrollers, and I had a bit of an engineering background, so I tried to remember my soldering and physics and electronics and get into this stuff. I wound up building a couple instruments, which I'll talk about, and doing a documentary on this. Of course, this is right before Arduino. This is a couple years before Arduino came out, and which was a kind of a big bummer to me, because back then it was really hard to program stuff. I don't know if anybody, a couple of you are smiling, you remember having to, you had to go on like an old PC, and you had like a serial cable, and you had to keep uploading all this firmware. It was just such a nightmare. Arduino's made life so much easier. But it was still, you could tell it was the cusp of something when people were starting to really build some interesting interfaces. And we did a documentary on it. There's been a bunch of conferences on NIME. I won't talk about NIME much, but if you're into it, if you just Google NIME, you'll come up with some amazing stuff. The Stein Institute in Amsterdam is really big on it. There's I can't remember his name right now, but he has these hands which are, different sort of actuated motors and things and sensors all over them that can control different instruments.
Vangelis?
Oh, not Vangelis, no, although he does, yeah. He's a Dutch fellow, and I can't remember his name. Yeah, Sue just passed away a couple years ago. Yeah, the founder of Stein, he's amazing. So of course, you guys already know this stuff, so I'll just keep going. My documentary is online if you guys want to check it out. It's kind of an interesting little snapshot of, a slightly pretentious snapshot of New York new music scene. I built some instruments that had some had some interesting concepts about passive instruments versus active instruments. I'm going to skip through this guy though, go to this one. So my first one, which has this kind of garbage aesthetic, I think, as people have called it. is it was called the grab pipe, and it had an accelerometer inside it. It had these video game buttons. I found a video game supply company, so those are actual video game buttons, which I just loved and tried to find a use for. And it's kind of taken from spare parts I found around the workshop that we had there in New York. So I've got like a DJ crossfader down on the bottom there. I've got the bits of some kind of milling machine, so I could turn the head, and some potentiometers stuck in there so I can get some values out of it. And it was really just kind of a neat way to experiment with different modes of making sound and control. So I loved the DJ crossfader. You know, I was kind of getting into visuals at the time. I loved just watching turntablists, how they would just sort of flick it up and back, and it would be sort of like a full-on instrument in itself. So I thought, you know, why doesn't somebody try and fit that into some kind of electronic instrument? I mean, it seems like such a nice controller. The video game buttons were fun. The accelerometer was kind of fun. It kind of stood about yay high, you know, so you could really kind of tilt it and play with it. You know, it's a very physical thing. You could shake it and have things happen with it. When I showed it at the show, we did a year-end show there, and some guy took it and he just started wrestling it. It was the craziest thing. And a big kind of burly guy took it up and just picks it up, starts like shaking it like that, and banging it on the ground, and you know. But I was happy for that. You know, I built it to be pretty rugged, so it lasted through that. Also designed to be taken apart and taken to gigs, because taking like a 6-foot instrument around to gigs is not the easiest thing in the world. I did carry it on the subway in New York with all the wires sticking out of it, and nobody gave me a second look. It was really funny. You think, you know, a massive pipe with wires sticking out the end of it, people would be like, oh my God, what is that? But it didn't turn anyone's head. But it was a fun thing. It was an audio-visual controller. One thing I wanted to point out, with the video game buttons, it also had this idea of combos, because I used to be into playing video games back in the day. And I loved like the fighting games where you'd have to hit this crazy sequence of buttons in order to have it do something. So I experimented doing sequences of inputs to make sounds trigger, like arpeggios, and to make videos trigger and certain other things. Don't know how successful I was on any one part of this thing, but it was a really fun platform to experiment with. Okay, and then jumping ahead, the first kind of big-scale interactive installation that me and a couple people I work with did was in Ohio, and it was for a pretty large corporation, an insurance corporation, believe it or not, called Progressive. And they are really quite progressive. They have a great art collection. They have a great art institution there, where it's this kind of massive Frank Gehry designed, or I don't know if it's Frank Gehry, but it looks like a Frank Gehry designed building, very airy, very filled with glass, out there in the middle of Ohio. Art is just everywhere. I mean, they're really into like helping out their employees and having a good environment to work in, even though it's an insurance company, so it's not the most exciting thing in the world. But they let us do this massive projection there, which was down a 75-foot corridor. We kind of built, it's kind of hard to tell from the picture. I might show another movie to show you a bit more about it. But we sort of built like a movie theater into the wall. And people could walk down the corridor, see this installation, and then they were kind of forced to interact with this movie. So actually, why don't I show the video clip of that first? Oops, sorry, give me a sec. I don't have my video clip queued up here. This is what happens when your laptop crashes. Okay, so year of the motorcycle. Oh. Sorry for the delay. So I think, well, I don't have the movie queued up right now, but I'll show you what the corridor looks like here. So stretching down from the entranceway, this is sort of it before it's fully built. So they had a motor